If he signs one list.
Parents too close.
Well, that's why Holy Sawyer wrote them off.
Jack is one of my favorites.
Now she's
Got him there to
going
get
on the
it.
roads and stuff.
Oh, she tried it? I know. She tried it.
So when did the end of June?
7:30.
Goldie is up on
Probably emailed us and I couldn't see.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yes,
one night.
Goldie's right.
I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order on Tuesday, May 23rd, excuse me, 2023 at 7:30 PM in the Aldermanic Chamber. The prayer will be offered by City Clerk Dan Healey. Excuse me. And Alderman Klee will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance.
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Klee.
Here.
Alderman Moran.
Present.
Alderman Lopez.
Here.
Alderman Jette.
Here.
Alderman Clemmons.
Here.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Here.
Alderman Como.
Present.
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderman Goea.
Here.
Alderman Karen.
Here.
Alderman Tebow.
Here.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Here.
Alderman Wilshire.
Here.
15 present, 0 absent.
Thank you. Also joining us this evening is Mayor Jim Donchis and Corporation Counsel Steve Bolton. Mayor, did you wish to address the board this evening?
Yes, Madam President. So first, I wanted to thank the PD, specifically Chief Rourke, Deputy Fay, and Sergeant John Goodrich, for all of the work they've been doing with the homeless population in Nashua. I think unbeknownst to most people, they have done a tremendous amount of outreach in terms of talking with, locating, and engaging various people who do not have homes and are living in various locations. And I think have done probably more than anyone else in that regard. So to that end, the three officers separately gave toured some of these locations with me on one day. Emily Marticello, the emergency management director, on another day, and Bobby Bagley on a different day. And as a result of all of that, we've held now a special internal meeting, an internal meeting with a lot of people involved to try to come up with additional ways of dealing with and hopefully engaging the homeless population and trying to get people, especially those involved with fentanyl, and it seems there are quite a few, into treatment and a better situation. So we're just beginning with that, but the police department has certainly done an outstanding job in that area. Next, I wanted to mention our event on Tuesday, the 30th. We are having the ceremony at which the Holman Stadium will be included on the New Hampshire Black Heritage Trail. And as I think many people know, the reason for this is that in 1946, the two African-American players, Roy Campanella and Don Newcomb, were brought to Nashua. The Dodgers had the farm team, the Nashua Dodgers. And as a result of that, their introduction here in Nashua, Nashua was the first racially integrated team in the United States. Now, Jackie Robinson, of course, made it to the majors first, but in 1946, he was assigned, the Dodgers assigned him to their farm team in Montreal, Canada, on the theory that he might not be accepted at some of the AAA teams elsewhere. So he was actually in Canada while Newcomb and Campanella were in Nashua, at the Nashua Dodgers. Don Newcomb has wrote before he, of course, passed away, that his reception here was very friendly and he really enjoyed his stay. Ultimately, Jackie Robinson went to the Major League team in 1947, and our two players continued to play here, and then in subsequent years, they went to the Major League team, the Dodgers. Now, Don Newcomb's widow is coming to this ceremony from California and is very excited about it. And of course, the NAACP here will be involved, along with the New Hampshire Black Heritage Trail. So that's on the 30th. I think it's at 5:30. It begins at Holman Stadium. So I hope as many people as possible can join us there. I also wanted to mention, of course, that I did want to briefly touch on O2354, which is on the agenda. As you know, the ACLU has written us a letter on this. We are meeting with a lawyer from the ACLU tomorrow to kind of discuss the matter, and I certainly will keep you posted on that. Also coming up on the 29th is our Memorial Day Parade. I hope as many of you as possible can join, and of course Memorial Day is for the remembrance of those who have lost their lives in battle, defending our nation. But we also like to recognize, our country also likes to recognize the veterans. On that day, those that are still with us. And on our Board of Aldermen, I think we have Gloria Timmons, Rick Dowd, Ernie Jette, I think are our veterans. I think, if there's anyone else, please speak up.
I'm still alive, Mayor.
Pardon?
I'm still alive.
I've noticed that. But we're recognizing the veterans who served and fortunately, did not have to make the ultimate sacrifice. So we are, as usual, we will have a city delegation marching in the parade, and anyone that would like to do that, please join us, and thank you to our veterans for your service. And that's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you, Mayor. Responses to the request, Mayor. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Mayor, I would like to offer my kudos to the police department. The homeless problem in the city, I don't want to use the term like acute, but it is something to be noticed. And I'm glad that the city has taken a positive step. And those that know me personally, without discussing my personal history and everything else like that, I'm attuned to some of the things that these people are, unfortunately, are afflicted by. And if I could be of any service to you or them with it, then I would offer that. But I congratulate MPD for stepping up to the plate on that.
Alderman Klee.
Thank you, Madam President. And Mr. Mayor, I think it was last week or the week before last, it was supposed to be Chief Rourke, but he had an emergency, couldn't make it, so he sent 2 of his officers to my ward meeting. And at that time, we talked about a variety of things, but the homeless was one of them, and they talked about some of the issues that they have and so on. And I brought up an issue that I think I'd mentioned to you about. And one of the things that we talked about was just moving people for the sake of moving them without having a plan and so on just wasn't an aspect. And I was happy to hear some of the things that they had to say about it. So thank you. I too agree that our PD is doing as good a job as they can. I know tomorrow there's a continuum of care cleanup project in the Armory Street area. So thank you.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. Unsheltered instead of homeless is the best way
Unsheltered.
to phrase it. And I too would like to offer any support I can provide to the city. And I was unsheltered as of, within the decade, so I understand that the plight. of people who don't have a home or a place to stay. So I would come to any internal meetings that you guys are having to offer any assistance.
Well, one thing we're exploring further is that there are federal funds available regarding providing housing in general, which possibly could be directed in this direction to the unsheltered. And Bobby Bagley, Director of Public Health and Community Services, also has some grant money that might be available to do case management. So as you talk with people, one of the biggest problems is for those that are involved with fentanyl that, living outside, it makes it virtually impossible to try to, become sober. So, obviously people need a place to stay. And anyway, these are some of the issues that we hope to discuss. In addition to the police department, Emily Marticello, who's as I said, the emergency management director, has, I think, been doing really a great job with this, and and what she's been doing is providing some suggestions as to immediate steps in terms of just the organization that we might be able to take. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that we can at least institute something that might make a difference.
And I would say my company will offer 40 hours of free case management to anyone.
Well, that's
who
very
needs it,
generous.
that
Thank you
needs,
very much. One
okay.
thing they point out is that they, in general, that there is, rarely is there case management available. And again, for someone who is in the grips of fentanyl, which is a very serious problem, health problem, case management is an essential service that people need in order to try to attain sobriety. And that, I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure.
Alderman Lopez.
So I want to commend the outreach workers and the police for developing this partnership. I would say it's probably existed for much longer than has been evident, but they've definitely reached a new level, which I think is long overdue. Some people might dimly recall some comments here by a former police chief with regards to some concerns I raised with the police commissioners regarding better integration of services and interventions. That was awkwardly read out loud over here. That was because the police are often used as the frontline crisis response in an area where they're self-admittedly not the only tool we should be using. And I think collectively we can't, as aldermen and legislators, talk about how great a job the police are doing without giving them the tools and giving them the partners to address this. We have, for many years, not increased the budget on city welfare. And we haven't focused on the primary helping agent that people who are looking at homelessness turn to. We tried to review the eligibility criteria. We tried to review the hours of operation, all these different efforts that really bore no fruit. And I think if collectively we can address those things and we can make it clear to people that there is help available and there is a door they can go to, we will see improvements in this situation. People regularly ask me, what am I doing about the homeless, encampments? I'm like, I'm trying to feed them and I'm trying to find housing for them. Moving them to another area doesn't solve any issues. Even last year, there was a couple of my fellow boardmen who were calling for retaliating against churches that were help the homeless because it was inconvenient and it was not good for our business scene. And that's not a productive approach. The situation hasn't gotten any better. So I think it's important for us to recognize that, number one, this situation didn't just emerge. It's very tempting to say, oh, this is suddenly a thing that's happening right now, we should jump in. But the reality is there are systemic issues and indifference that have contributed to this over the last several years. Decisions made at the state level to hand out tents instead of funding decompression shelters. Where do you think all of the unsheltered people got their tents? These issues have been building. and they're gonna take a longer lift and a heavier lift than just a short-term approach. And I think part of that, Mr. Mayor, might need to be looking at how we apply our city welfare systems, because in the past, we've been able to use nonprofit organizations as intermediaries, and they've done a tremendous amount of work, but they've been under the strain of increased pressures. And now we're starting to see other city services, including the police, but also not limited to Department of Public Works and any number of other departments, code enforcement, that are dealing with these issues as well. So we thought we were gonna get away without having the issue because Manchester was handling it, but they weren't. It's always been a regional issue where people who are homeless some of them are directed towards municipalities, and some of them are our own neighbors and our own residents who couldn't make it to this service or weren't eligible to that one. So I hope we're willing to look at this with the same kind of energy that we approached the opioid crisis the first time, recognizing that opioid crisis, we didn't close Safe Station because the opioid crisis was over. We closed it because we didn't have a 24/7 partner for the fire department to work with anymore. And all of the very enthusiastic and interested parties that were there at the beginning of the crisis faded away and found other things to be doing. We can't do that here. So I'm glad that we're having, these organized meetings. I might sound a little bit cynical because this is like year 19 of this for me, but I do think we can make a huge difference, and we can end homelessness, we can end substance misuse, at least one person at a time, if we align the resources. And that means not cheering on the people who are taking the lead and then leaving them to hang when it comes time to actually put our money where our mouth is. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Recognition period.
None.
Reading minutes of previous meeting. There being no objection, I'll declare the minutes of the Board of Aldermen meeting of April 11th, 2023 be accepted, placed on file, and the reading suspended. Communications requiring only procedural actions and written reports from liaisons.
Communication has been received from Donna Graham, Legislative Affairs Manager, regarding Resolution R-23-123, referral to Greeley Park Advisory Committee.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communication and place it on file. Period for public comment relative to items expected to be acted upon this evening. No one has signed up. Communications requiring final approval?
None.
Petitions?
None.
Nominations, appointments, and elections?
Greeley Park Advisory Committee, Brendan Laws, new appointment, term to expire May 23rd, 2026, 21 East Dunstable Road, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03060. Francis Murphy, new appointment, term to expire May 23rd, 2026, 72 Berkeley Street, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03064.
There being no objection, I'll accept the appointments by the mayor as read and refer them to the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee. Reports of committees. There being no objection, I'll declare the report of the April 12th, 2023 Committee on Infrastructure be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I will declare the report of the April 17th, 2023 Human Affairs Committee be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I will declare the report of the May 3rd Pennachuck Water Special Committee be accepted and placed on file. Confirmation of mayor's appointments.
None.
Unfinished business resolutions.
Second reading of R-23-117, approving the cost items of a collective bargaining agreement between the Nashua Board of Education and the Nashua Teachers Union Local Number 1044 AFT AFL-CIO Unit B Para Educators from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025, and related transfers.
Alderman Dowd.
I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-23-117. I'd like to speak to it briefly.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, this passed the Budget Committee unanimously and recommend for final passage.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want, for the record, I was not here to co-sponsor this, but I fully support it. I was out of town at a conference.
Motion is for final passage. Further discussion. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just like to say, I don't know if all you know it, but my wife Diane was a para for over 20 years. And like I said at the budget hearing, I think she personally potty trained half the population of the city of Nashua. But these teachers cannot teach and develop the time in the classroom. There's a lot going on. If it wasn't for these paras that come into the classrooms and to do their job. I was very proud of my wife for over her 20 years of service in doing that with the preschool and everything else. A lot of great kids and stuff like that. And she got to see a lot of them grow up and lead very productive lives. So it's rewarding in that regard. But I think it's high time that we reward them. You know, they have traditionally have been one of the lowest paid within the school department. So I am 100% going to support this, and I hope that you join me. Thank you.
Alderman Klee.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to echo my colleagues' words relative to the importance of paras. I recently went on a tour of a couple of schools, and one of the schools we stopped by, and Alderman Dowd was there as well. One of the schools that we stopped by, the principal was just singing the praise of the paras. That particular day, I think she had 3 or 4 teachers that were out, and it was the paras that were stepping up and doing this. It wasn't just walking them to a bathroom or doing any kind of education. They were actually teaching the class. So it's extremely important that we have them. Our schools rely on them, the teachers rely on them, and I think it's important that we give them what they're worth. So thank you.
Motion is for final passage. Further discussion? Excuse me. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, and Resolution 23-117 is declared duly adopted. Unfinished business ordinances.
None.
New business resolutions.
None.
New business ordinances.
First reading of O-23-054 relative to public comment.
Additional sponsors. Alderman O'Brien. Alderman Dowd, Alderman Timmons, Alderwoman Timmons. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee.
First reading of O-23-055, amending the zoning map by rezoning land along the Amherst Street corridor from general business GB to general business with mixed-use overlay district, from park industrial to park industrial with mixed-use overlay district, and from highway business to highway business with mixed-use overlay district.
Additional sponsors. Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Sullivan, Alderman Klee, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Camo, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Tebow, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Planning and Economic Development Committee, the Planning Board, and schedule a public hearing at Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, June 14th, 2023 in the Aldermanic Chamber. Period for general public comment. One person has signed up, Fred Tebow.
Good evening. My name is Fred Tebow. I reside at 24 Cheyenne Drive. I am here to address the spending cap calculation that is attached to the fiscal 24 budget resolution R23-125. I should say that Mayor Wagner, beginning in 1994, Mayor Davison, Mayor Streeter, and Mayor Lozo all calculated the spending cap legitimately. But Mayor Donches and his administration, beginning in 2016, has attempted to undermine the cap with fake calculations. The spending cap attached to the fiscal 24 budget resolution has 3 major errors. Namely, it includes supplemental appropriations, it includes grants, and it includes special revenue funds, none of which should be included. I won't go into details. I don't have time in the 3 minutes that I have. The issue of excluding these items in the calculations were not resolved in a complaint I filed with the Superior Court last year, since the court heard no testimony from city officials and did not accept solely my own testimony. The court stated in its decision that the plaintiff, me, did not sufficiently establish that the city erred in calculating the cap, but also noted, and I quote, that the plaintiff has raised legitimate concerns. I should note that Attorney Bolton outsmarted me because he didn't call CFO Griffin and any other city official that appeared in his witness list. He had me on the stand for an hour and a half. I was his only witness. So he denied me the opportunity
1
to
minute.
cross-examine these individuals. I will therefore reserve a renewed filing of my complaint with this fiscal '24 budget or succeeding budgets. When I do, I will subpoena a number of city witnesses, including Mayor Donches, CFO John Griffin, Controller Rose Evans, and former Treasurer Tax Collector David Fredette to testify. I will not make the same mistake twice. Thank you.
Remarks by members of the board. I'll start on this side tonight. Alderman Timmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to thank the mayor for recognizing veterans. My family did make the ultimate sacrifice. My brother got killed during the Vietnam era. So I did lose a brother that was only a couple of years older than I. And that's why I joined the military. I know that's crazy. My mother thought it was crazy anyway. And
The bathroom door.
I know.
But I'm sure we
in
have
kind of a lot of people that's not too dear in mind. But anyway, he did make the ultimate sacrifice and lost his life at the age of 23. So, thank you.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. A couple things. First, I want to thank Alderman Dowd for doing a great job so far with the budget meetings. I know he's got more coming up, and he's got the big one coming up at North. But so far, I've watched him, or I've been in the chamber, and I think he's done a great job, and so have the city department. So those who have come through so far, I thank them for coming in on their pretty late in the night to answer our questions, and I think it's gone pretty well so far. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this week, the consultant for the schools had come out and stated that his advice would be to close 6 schools in Nashua, including a high school and a middle school. And I thought that was crazy advice to the city. I think it must come from someone that wants to completely get rid of public education, because there's no way that this city could afford to lose that many schools. We do not want 30 to 40 kids in a classroom. And, you know, I mean, we're building schools. We're building a school right now. Why would we ever get rid of them? And one of the consultant's main thoughts was, you know, I've done this in many, many places, and you can build all the construction you want, and you can build all the housing, but it's not going to bring in students. Enrollments are going down, and you know, in 10 years, you're not going to have more students than you have now. And I throw that out to us and, you know, Director Sullivan and Director Hannum, that now let's not make that happen, right? Let's continue to make population come here, live here, that have families and children that go to schools. We want to be that city. We want to have all kinds of people here, whether it's the elderly, whether it's young people, whether it's young couples, whether it's families that have young children, older children. And I think that it's important to prove this guy wrong, because he was arrogant, and he was, as some people have said to me today in this chamber, rude to our citizens. And I don't think that's, you can't come here from somewhere else and disrespect Nashua and tell us what we can and cannot do, because we're not closing 6 schools. And I hope the BOE throws that recommendation completely out. You can throw all of it out as far as I'm concerned. You know, he could take his bag of money and go back to Missouri or wherever the heck he's from, because he doesn't believe in the values of this city. So I hope we don't approve any of that, and I hope the superintendent and the BOE makes good choices on this. Thank you.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to wish Jim and Sarah Rafferty a very happy retirement. I got to go to their retirement party this afternoon before our meeting tonight. It was a great time. I was a former employee of them as a marketing manager for both of their locations here in Nashua. the Lucky Moose as well as the River Casino. It was great to see some former colleagues of mine, and they're under new ownership now, and I wish them all the best. They've done a ton for local nonprofits in the city, donating 35% of revenue to a new nonprofit every 10 days. So fantastic work by them. Happy for them. Hope they enjoy their retirement. Thank you.
Alderman Dowd.
Just a couple things. One, I want to thank everybody for passing the para contract. My daughter, when she graduated from college and had a teaching degree, started as a para at Fairgrounds Elementary School, followed by being a teacher later. But a lot of the paras are fully qualified teachers, and when they take over a class, up until this contract, they get paid their regular hourly wage, which is next to nothing. And now, if they teach for more than an hour, they get the full substitute salary, which is not a heck of a lot better, but at least it's more money for taking the responsibility of teaching a number of students. The other thing is, as was mentioned about the schools, I looked at the calculations this afternoon, and they're woefully wrong. The calculations on the schools and the population was done by square footage. And they had over 1,200 students attending the new McCarthy School. I can tell you right now, it's not built for 1,200 students. It's built for 800. And they're using square foot rather than class size. And my guess is that they don't have any idea the size of the classrooms. So I think that needs to be closely looked at before they make any decisions. The other thing, I just want to wish everybody a happy Veterans Day Memorial Day coming up, rather. Anybody that's been in the military knows the sacrifices that the military goes through, even in peacetime, and it's something everybody should be proud of, because the things that we enjoy here every single day are because we have those guys and women out on the line. So, thank you.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. I wanted to thank the mayor for bringing up the Holman Stadium opportunity next week. I'm really excited for us to get onto the Black Heritage Trail, and it's always such a piece of joy and excitement when I get to share that story that we were the first integrated baseball team in the country. So I'm looking forward to attending that. I also had a lovely time was it last week? Wow, it's been so long. At the New Hampshire Businesses for Social Sustainable Responsibility conference, and we did a lot of talk around climate. Doria Brown came up a number of times, and they were very complimentary about the work that the city's doing. So it was nice to get out there and meet a lot of people who are like-minded in that way. And I too wanted to thank everyone for the support of the para. I think there's a lot of really good ways to uplift the work that they do. As Alderman O'Brien said, they do some of the hardest work in those classrooms, and I know that vividly as a middle school mom. So I'd like to see that happen. I'd love to pay them more. So thank you.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to give a very heartfelt thank you to all of the veterans and their families, especially the ones who did give the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you all for your service. Appreciate it.
Alderman Jette.
Thank you, Madam President. So I was kind of joking with the mayor about still being alive, but
But you are.
But I did want to make sure that people understood that Memorial Day is a day set aside to honor the people who died in service of their country. And I appreciate, people thanking all the veterans. They should be thanked every day, but that's not the purpose of this holiday. And I want to remind people that most of the people who died in wars, did not. It wasn't their choice. It wasn't even their choice, to be in the position they were in, that where they were, victims of the war. And back, World War II, I mean, most of the people that served, were drafted. And the same is true during Vietnam. When I served, most of the people were drafted. They didn't have any choice. And Vietnam kind of sticks out as one of those wars that was very controversial. The soldiers who served did not have the full support of the country, and as history has moved on, I think that more and more people recognize that war was a mistake, and not to dishonor to any degree whatsoever the people who served and gave up their lives. But as you read history, we look at World War II, we kind of grew up watching the movies and kind of the hero worshiping of people that served in World War II. But again, as history has moved on, we've learned, even World War II was not, the whole country was not behind that. There were a lot of people who were opposed to our going into World War II. And it's just one of the unfortunate aspects of war is that people die, people get injured, not only physically but psychologically. And I remember reading, I was really touched by General Dwight D. Eisenhower, who became president, wrote about how the most difficult decision he ever made was ordering D-Day, because he knew that a lot of soldiers, a lot of American soldiers, a lot of British soldiers were going to die in that invasion of Normandy on D-Day. And it's it's something that I would like us all to remember about how the people who lost their lives, what a big sacrifice that was for them and their families, and it should be remembered. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Lopez.
In reference to the recognition of Holman Stadium's historic place, that's very exciting to be a part of. I've been part of of recognizing history that other people have been made, but I think I was there at the NAACP event at Holman where Gloria and the mayor started to talk about, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we on that trail? And I think that kind of a moment just needs somebody to take charge and say, well, we should, and to take that lead. So I definitely want to credit the work that the mayor and the NAACP have done, the role that its president, Linda Harriet Gathright, has played in it as well. And I want to encourage us all to recognize that we have those moments in front of us, because often we are presented with inequities in our life, and they seem too big or too insurmountable to do anything about. And we're here to make that difference. We're here to make that history, even if we just have to say, we have ideas about doing things differently, that some future generation might say, you know what, this is where Nashua decided to be a welcoming city. This is where Nashua decided to be a city of kindness. I think, particularly with regards to what Alderman Tebow said about the schools, I have been in the education field forever and been hearing about the incoming student bubble, where smaller family sizes are likely to create a reduction in the use of schools and public schools and all that kind of stuff. And the outlier to that has always been families that are economically diverse, families that are culturally diverse. It's not every family that has smaller children sizes. And I think, sure, maybe the consultants could be right about what Nashua could look like. If we gentrify it, and if we favor all of our construction towards young professionals and, whatever imaginary person we're trying to recruit up from Boston. But if we look at the families that are growing up here and the people who have roots here and these residents in these neighborhoods, you're not going to see Nashua shrink. You're going to see it grow. I watch the borders of my ward shrink because Nashua's growing vertically upwards in Ward 4. We're getting more buildings, we're getting more people, we're getting more ideas, and we're getting different types of lifestyle. And it's very easy for that to be misunderstood, or for people to compete with each other over things like parking revenue or access to, parks or amenities and that kind of stuff, without recognizing that the different experiences have different needs. So I think being part of history at Holman Stadium should be a reminder to us all that we are part of someone else's history in the future. On the topic of making history, I want to congratulate State Representative Mark Plamondon on his win. He did a lot of great service for us as aldermen. I'm looking forward to representation in the State House. We could get all three, that's a problem for another day, but at least now we're 2 out of 3. So I'm looking forward to that. And then finally, I wanted to put an announcement out now that it's close enough that people might actually have it on their calendars. The Tree Streets Block Party is going to be June 18th. It's Sunday and it's Father's Day. We are focusing on fathers this year, particularly the fathers who may not have, access to, a cruise or whatever to bring their kids on, but do want to be out and part of the community and want to celebrate it. And we're also excited to be including Juneteenth as a celebration over at Los Amigos Park. That is in partnership with the New Fellowship Faith Baptist, and the NAACP is helping as well. So it's exciting to be part of those different changes, and it's an honor to recognize the different people in our community that have different needs and different stories. So I invite you all to come and be part of that as well.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I didn't read the data from the school consultant, but I won't comment on it until I actually read the numbers. But in general, I think getting young families to come here should be a key goal of the city overall, especially when we look at housing developments. The rents here are very, very expensive, not to consider the home prices. Even next to where Alderman Karen and I live, I think we're looking at $700,000 for a single family home. And it's not a lot of space. And we only have so much control of the market of supply and demand. But families want to live in an environment that has good schools, have great communities, have diverse culture as well. And we have that here. We just have to focus on making housing that's affordable, not 80% or so, whatever the median is, but we're talking about lower end pricing, but good housing. And hopefully the overlays that I put forth today, that 10 of you co-sponsors would help that if we can get development up on Amherst Street. But definitely whatever we can do to try to motivate the city to bring in more young families so there are children going into the school. My oldest daughter's transitioning to public school next year, so I look forward to that. It's either going to be bicentennial or New Searles. I don't know. Ward 9's a little weird on how they divvy up schools, and I saw the redistricting is a little odd. So it'll probably be New Searles. But I think, especially when I was, other than this great job, looking at moving, I decided to stay here in Nashville because of everything it has to offer. And I think we need to do increase the job that we're doing to bring more young families in. Second, the event at Holman Stadium, Tuesday night, I encourage everyone to come by. It is an election year, remember everyone. Come by, have yourself seen and heard. It is a great thing that's happening for the recognition of this, the place on the Black Heritage Trail that Holman Stadium will have. And just speaking with Representative Linda Gathridge, who's the president of the NAACP, just the history behind it, and it happened here. Just another thing for all of us and our families and our community to be proud of. And she talked me into, I haven't done it yet, but I will, signing up for a membership for NAACP. So I hope everyone will do that as well. What else do we have going on? Next month is Pride Month. I know Alderwoman Kelly will be talking about it soon enough, but my pin will transform from the American flag to the Pride pin for the month of June, and I look forward to all the great public comment I'm sure we will be seeing throughout the month of June. What else? I feel like I'm missing something. Nope, that's it. All right.
Alderman Klee.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to start with the event at Holman Stadium and the parade. For the first time in 6 years, I'm actually taking a vacation, a real vacation, so I will not be in town for that. For 2 weeks, I will be leaving the state, so I'm really sad that I'm going to miss that. If I could change the date, but they refuse to change the whole conference just for me, I would do that. But the other thing is I do want to touch base on the school redistricting. It's no secret that I'm very upset that Mount Pleasant seems to be targeted in that, and to the end of the conversation of Mount Pleasant is that it's one of the few walking schools that we have. And many people that move into that area move in because it's a walking school. And now suddenly they're talking about closing it and redistricting these students to be bused, which would disenfranchise the families of these students and so on. I read the letter that the gentleman who is the consultant, his first comment in that letter was that he had never worked on a city the size of Nashua, and that he had never experienced anything like this. Yet he's got grand ideas of closing one high school, one middle school that hasn't even been built yet, and we're still paying off the high school, and I think six elementary schools. And redistricting is hard for anybody. So whether you close one school or you close 6 schools, no one is going to be happy. But for those that are saying, well, it's Mount Pleasant and it's not my school, you're next. So I think we all need to stand up and we need to speak out. And Mount Pleasant is a very special school, and it's not for disadvantaged children, but it's the only, just for everybody's knowledge, it's the only trauma school in our school district, the only trauma school. And that's because of the teachers and so on that went and got certified to make it a certified trauma school. I think we should have that throughout the entire district, but this school is special. Katie's Pantry that they have, and yes, it needs work, but for 37 years, no one has touched the school. So that's why it needs work, and that's why it needs whatever money it needs to have it repaired and updated and so on. It is a historic building. However, the 1986 or 87 edition would allow for the security vestibule. So you don't have to touch the front of it and you don't have to affect that. So there are workarounds if they really want to do it. So I don't want to see any school close. I just don't like the fact that Mount Pleasant was targeted from day one, including in the superintendent's letter that said the potential of closing schools, specifically Mount Pleasant. And those were the words, specifically Mount Pleasant, without ever having talked about it. So I was just a little disappointed in that. And again, I want to send out my thanks to Chief Rourke and the officer that came and spoke. We must have had 30 or 40 people at the Hunt building, all asking lots of questions, and they were wonderful. They answered many of them. We had a lot from Jackson Fall condominiums because they're dealing with a lot of things that are happening on the railroad tracks. I've been trying to be in touch with CSX through Senator Shaheen's office. I kind of really spoke my mind in the last email with their lack of responding to us, but I feel confident that Senator Shaheen's office will get more attention to Nashua. And I'm talking about not just in Ward 3, although this part is in Ward 3, the railroad tracks that go across the border. When we spoke to them, they made a comment and said something to the effect of, well, you know, we'd have to reroute Main Street. And I think the mayor, myself, Director Sullivan, and Director Cummings almost in unison said, okay, we would reroute it while they fix that particular thing, as long as they really fixed it. So there's been a lot of cheap talk and not much action. So hopefully we can get that moving. Thank you, Madam President.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you very much. I wanted to say a word about Memorial Day. And it always struck me kind of weird that you always say Happy Memorial Day when it's a very unhappy occasion, because I think about the families of those soldiers, airmen, Marines, et cetera, who made the ultimate sacrifice and the burden that those families carry on. And I think about that. And I've been blessed over the past 2 years to make frequent visits to West Point. And this past weekend, I was at the United States Naval Academy. And I will say that if you ever have a chance to go to those institutions in this country, it is an opportunity to understand the sacrifice that was made by generations before us, either those that raised their hand or those that were made to sign up through a lottery, and even before in the Civil War when the race riots in New York City that helped form what New York City is today. But it's the new generation that's coming up, the new generation that have raised their hand because of the situation we're in, that we are blessed to be in. But there are those that raise their hand to say, I am preparing for the next one, and I will sacrifice what it takes. So I pause to remember those that came before us, that gave us the opportunity to speak our minds and worship in the way we want to and do whatever it is that we do in a free society. But I also applaud those that have stepped up, either you're commissioned or non-commissioned. I applaud you and I thank you.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I too just like to reflect upon the moment of Memorial Day. I do understand there's going to be a ton of hamburgers and hot dogs to cook on the grill, and families will get together, and you know, maybe that's why the soldiers and sailors and airmen made that supreme sacrifice, so that we could have the quality of life that we have here in America. So while you're waiting for the burgers to cook, and you know, before you put the cheese on them, maybe if you could take just a second and reflect back to our veterans who have made that supreme sacrifice. Thank you.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you for giving me a second bite at the apple. I had two things. I actually only had one, but then everybody talked. So the Pride Festival I wanted to mention, which thank you for that reminder. I knew I forgot something. It's on the 24th of June from 2 to 6. We'll be pushing off from Elm Street as usual. It'll be in the National Public Library parking lot like it was the last few years. But the thing I wanted to point out was that the Pride merchandise store opened today. So if you go to nationalpride.org and go to our Facebook page, you can get the link to get this year's t-shirt, or there's some really cool tie-dye hoodies. It's really a nice set of stuff this year. So I just wanted to mention it's only open till June 5th. So if you want to pre-buy and not hold out hope that you'll get one on the day of the festival, then you should do that before the 5th. I also wanted to make sure that all the aldermen put it on their calendar and come with us. It's my understanding that our trolley is not working, but I'm gonna see if I can rile up some something so we can get there, or I can get there because I can't walk it. And then I wanted to just quickly note about the redistricting. I've been close to that process and I've seen what's come through from the consultant. I think that there was a lot of really good discussion here in terms of the numbers that are being put out are numbers, and they're based on, methodology and, analysis, that kind of thing, but they're not necessarily based on what we want for our community. So if we want a community where we have walking schools, where we have families that want to live and walk to school and have that type of thing, everything we do in this chamber actually affects that. What kinds of buildings are we building? What kind of sidewalks are we building? What kind of infrastructure are we taking care of and not letting schools sit for 37 years? So I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of it, but I think that if the idea of closing 6 schools is surprising and startling to you, then there are things that we can do to shift that. Thank you. Thank you.
Committee announcements. Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. June 12th, June 14th. I got it wrong when I saw Donna shaking her head, by the way. We'll be having a public hearing on some new legislation. We'll also see the legislation that we saw tonight at that meeting as well, I believe. regarding the rezoning of Amherst Street with the overlay. Thank you.
Alderman O'Brien?
Yes, we canceled the meeting May 24th for the Committee of Infrastructure. The reason we did so, and this is just to inform the public, the budget takes priority. And the Budget Committee is meeting every single night. There was nothing really too pressing on the agenda that cannot wait. So we'll yield to Alderman Dowd and the Budget Committee.
Alderman Klee?
Thank you, Madam President, and I thank Alderman Dowd for the date being given up of 6/12. So June 12th, the Pennachuck Special Water Committee will be meeting. So for all the members that are on that, it's really important that we all show up on June 12th. We have one item on the agenda, and that's the easement for through Greeley Park. There will be an amendment that will be coming once they talk about the changes of the Mets and Bounds, I think it's what it's called. So it is important that you all show up. The last couple times we just barely made quorum, and I'd like to thank Alderman Dowd and Alderman O'Brien for being there, but we really need everybody there, so thank you.
That's meets and bounds. Alderman.
Meets and bounds.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I think of meat, I think of get hungry. So.
Was Alderman Lopez?
The Human Affairs Committee has been moved to June 20th as well. We are also acceding to Alderman Dowd's will, less graciously, but we will be meeting June 20th because the budget does need to get done.
Alderman Dowd?
Yes, tomorrow evening, we have the public hearing on several items, followed by a budget meeting. There is no FY24 budget discussion tomorrow night. And then on Thursday is the Joint Special School Building Committee at 7 p.m. at Nashua High School North. And also, just to remind people that the public hearing on the budget, which was going to be on the 12th, is now on the 20th.
May 20th, okay, never mind.
Alderwoman Timmons?
Last but not least, the Cultural Connection will be meeting on Wednesday at 12 o'clock at 770 Temple Street.
Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make the motion that the May 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Board of Aldermen be adjourned.
Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, and we are adjourned at 8:28 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Boy, I just didn't use myself.